it cannot be separated from one type of text in English, that is narrative text. So what is narrative text? In today's discussion, there are 5 things that we are going to talk about. The first one will be about the definition of narrative text. The second one will be about the social function or the purpose of the text. The third will be about the generic structures. The fourth will be about the language features or the characteristics of the text. And the last one will be about the type of the text as well as some examples. So let's get started. Well, our first discussion today will be about the definition of narrative text. Narrative text is a piece of text which tells stories with complications or problematic event with resolution to solve the problem. Or we can probably say that narrative text is like someone who is having a problem in their life and that problem makes their conditions get worse, but those problems will lead them to resolution that can make their conditions get even better. Now that you have known the definition of narrative text, let's continue with the generic structure of the text. Here is the generic structures that all or almost all narrative texts follow. The first one is the orientations, or we can call it the beginning of the story. In this part, the scene is set and all the characters are introduced. That's why it is called the beginning of the story. The second part is complications. In complication part, usually the problems arise and it will add conflicts to the story, and after that it will lead to a climax. The last generic structure is the resolutions. In this part of the text, you can call it the last or the ending story, where all of the conflicts or problems are usually solved. Well, we have known the definition of narrative text and as well as the generic structures. There is one more important thing that we have to know about this kind of text, that is the language features. Just like any other text in English, narrative text also has its language features. The first one is this text focuses on single participant or one specific participant, not in general. The second one is it uses simple past tense. In this case, you're going to have to recall back to the very beginning that narrative text also tells about past experiences. That's why we have to use simple past tense. The next one is it uses temporal conjunction. Because each sentence and paragraph are continuing each other, that's why there must be connection between those sentences and those paragraphs. Next, narrative text also uses figurative language and progressive verbs. Figurative language such as simile, metaphor, personifications, or hyperbole are used to add meanings to the story. The last one is narrative text uses dialogue. The use of dialogue in narrative text is to express attitude, personality, and also the relationship. Now, let's get to the type of narrative text. The first type is fairytales. Fairytales is a story about magical creatures. It often deals with prince and princess, giants and elves, queens and witches, and of course the fairies. Or we can say that those characters in fairy tales often experience something magical. Let's take some examples. Cinderella, Snow White, Rapunzel, Beauty and the Beast, and there are many more. The second type of narrative is folktale. Folktale is a story handed down from generation to generation, usually by oral retelling. It tells something that happened in the nature or conveys some certain truth about life. Some examples of folktales are Isumbosi, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, Momotaro, and etc. The third type of narrative text is fable. Fable is a short story, typically with animals, plants, or inanimate objects as the characters, conveying a moral. Some examples of fables are like the greedy dog, the ugly duckling, the ant and the grasshopper, or etc. You can find many more examples of fable. The fourth type of narrative text is myth. Myth is a traditional story or legendary story concerning about some being, hero, or event. This kind of text often dealing with God and goddess, or supernatural humans, or people with godlike qualities. Let's take some examples. Some mythologies from Greek like Zeus and Hercules are the example of myth. And we also got some examples from Romanian mythology like Osiris and Re, the sun god. And of course from the Romanian mythology like Romulus and Remus. Those are the twin founders of Rome itself. The fifth type of narrative text is legend. Legend is a story handed down through generations which is believed by many people but cannot be proved to be true. Some examples of legends are like Alibaba, the Kraken, Yeti, Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness Monster or Nessie. Or some legend stories might be real, but others are not. Let's take an example of Robin Hood. Robin Hood might have been real, but the story about him are definitely fiction. Sixth type of narrative text is tall tale. Humans are really familiar with this kind of text. Tall tale is a story with unbelievable exaggeration, told as if it were true and meant to be humorous. One of the very popular tall tale story is Paul Bunyan, a story about a huge lumberjack who happened to take the Grand Canyon by his axe. Well, we can say that tall tale has so many exaggerations in this story. Well, I think I have missed something here. Well, there is one thing that I haven't described to you. Yes, the social function of the text, or the purpose of narrative text. Well, narrative text has two purposes here. The first one is it tells about something or someone from the past event, and the second one is to amuse or entertain the readers or the listeners. Well, today we have studied about the definition of narrative text, the social function of the text, the generic structures, the language features, and the type of narratives as well as the examples. I